Okay, great. We are live. Today I'm talking to Justin Freishtat, calling in to us from Vegas. Justin, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, it's great to be here. It's another sunny day out in the desert.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. That's a long way from us in Ireland. We're used to just continuous rain. So maybe you could kick off by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so Justin Freishtat, live out here in Las Vegas, Nevada for the past 2 years. I grew up around the DMV in Washington, D.C. Played hockey all the way through college, and then when that game ended, I needed a new one, so I went into door-to-door sales. That's really how I kicked off my career. We built an organic food delivery company over the better part of more than a decade. Ended up exiting that business, and now I'm in the private equity world. So we run some hedge funds, some private equity funds in late stage, pre-IPO, and then all the way down to startup companies in the VC world. So got lots of fun things going on. We do syndications in real estate, and once you get into this world, you can kind of spread out the love in terms of where you're investing, who you're investing with, who you raise capital from, and how you deploy it. So that's my world.
Very cool, very cool. That is quite the tale from start to finish to knocking on doors to private equity, right? It really seems like I mean this in a positive way from the bottom of the ladder, or really starting off with the grassroots and then going to the big dogs at the top, right? So going door to door, that's like I think a job most people dread more than anything in the world, right? The rejection is just unbearable for most of us. How did you deal with that? Did you have those same sort of fears when you started?
Oh, horrific fears. I was a very socially shy kid. I had so much social anxiety. So the fact that I've made a career being social with people is really hilarious. So yeah, I mean, I dealt with it heavy. I just, for whatever reason, had a quality about myself, I guess, where I was able to make myself do things I was terrified to do. And I saw college wasn't for me. I knew I wasn't going to have a traditional career path. I dropped out, but I saw, you know, I was working in the warehouse of this company for $7 an hour, and I was watching the sales guys, talk about their paychecks. So I knew it was possible, and they didn't seem special to me. I just knew I had to go fail forward and be willing to be terrible at something at first. And
So what
through
happened?
the
You just asked them for a shot. You just asked them for a shot to get on the sales team, and that was it, was it?
Yeah, I mean, it started with, I had to do canvassing first, go door to door and offer free samples for information, and then go through the training process of, doing an in-home sale. And then, yeah, it's what you'll find in the door to door world for the most part, since it's 100% commission, there's really no risk on the company to give somebody a shot,
Right,
right?
right.
And after, a decade of building sales teams and seeing, sometimes the people who impress you the most up front do nothing. And some of the
Mm,
people that you think will be, won't be successful in the role will go out and surprise you. So, yeah, I mean,
right,
that's kind of the 100% commission world.
right. It's interesting, isn't it? So I just on that sales people piece, I've heard that the best salespeople are found and then trained compared to just training somebody who's enthusiastic. What are your thoughts on that? Would you agree, or do you have a different perspective?
Yeah, I think the best salespeople are just the people who master the mundane in terms of, you've got to show up with enthusiasm to do something that you've done thousands of times, eventually, and do it like it's the first time.
Mm,
So mastering the mundane being that, you show up every day, you make a certain amount of calls, you do your follow-up. The best salespeople are not the best closers. That's a
mm,
huge misconception. I've always found that the most talented people at talking that are naturally that you would think would be great salespeople don't usually have the highest sales numbers because they lack disciplines that end up being high numbers.
mm.
I never had the highest closing percentage, but I showed up more than everybody else, and that's why my numbers were always at the top. I'll just outwork you.
Right. So it's that consistency and that methodical following of the process is superior to just being the best talker, but not actually having the diligence or the discipline to seal the deal, right?
Yeah, and just being completely authentic in your communication. If you don't actually believe in the product you represent, your authenticity will be off and
Mm,
you'll never be successful at it. And if you are able to make sales that way, I think you're internally always dealing with conflict and you'll be pretty miserable.
Yeah. Oh, I'd say it'd be super miserable. So that's interesting. So from someone who's like knocked on thousands of doors, or tens of thousands of doors, right, throughout your career, and even like in the private equity world, I'm sure you're used to deal with people from all walks of life and all different personalities. So I'm fascinated about how you can build rapport um, with people from different lifestyles or ages and all that demographics. How, if you're giving somebody tips about building rapport with somebody they didn't know, because some people struggle with it. Like there's people who are incredibly good interpersonal people, and then there's people they're just like numbers and spreadsheets and code, and their world is kind of difficult because they struggle with the interpersonal thing. But if you're giving some people tips, what would you say for building rapport?
Yeah, well, here's what it did for me. I knew that I was not great at talking to people, and I lost sleep over it. It was really something that I wanted to solve. So instead of reading books on sales, not to say that I didn't read sales books, but I read a lot more books about communication, about understanding different personalities and how to position yourself to deal with different types of people. I would study, what does the color of the car they drive mean? So, when I would roll up to a house before going in there, I would know who I'm dealing with based off of how they took care of their lawn, the color of their cars. Are they buying German cars? Are they buying American cars? You learn a lot about someone's values if you're very perceptive, and then, tailor your approach to connect with them and ask a lot of questions. It's very valuable to speak less, especially in sales. If it's the old two ears and one mouth for a reason is so true. If I can act interested in someone, I would walk up to houses that were worth $150,000. I'd walk up to houses that were worth $15 million. And whatever home I was in, I was genuinely curious in the story of that family and how I could serve them wherever they were. And if you operate from that perspective of serving and figuring out if you can even help that person and not being emotionally invested in the outcome, you're always going to end up in a good relationship, which usually ends up to a transaction.
That's great. That's great. They're really solid tips, right? Really authentic, noticing, building genuine connection with the person, right? I'm interested. Do you think that, I suppose, with all of our social media, and the way, the way we live online now, do you think younger people are going to struggle more with communication or building that rapport? Like when you're building a sales team now, are you thinking about it in a different way, or is it more or less the same guiding principles?
Yeah, I think technology, social media, all it really does is amplify the way things are. So, I see a lot of young kids that are rushing it because they have more access to information than ever. So if you use it for good, it's like development on steroids. I mean, you can learn literally anything in the world on YouTube, right? That didn't really exist the same way when I was younger that it does now. So technology enables you to pull back and do less. So I think if you're a motivated person, it's going to take you and enhance your skill sets, right? Because now you're all day on social media. If you're putting up stories, you're creating content, you're going to get better and better at doing that. And it also gives you the ability to sit there and scroll and be an introvert and not develop your skills, and you move backwards. So I think that the world just makes things easier to get in a better place or a worse place.
Yeah, right. It compounds either way, right? That's the interesting thing about social media, right? You can have 1,000 followers one day and 10,000, the next year if you keep compounding it. Whereas before it was like, just incremental stuff. 10% maybe salary increase on last year if you're lucky. So how did you go then to knocking door to door to exiting with was it 87 million, or scaling the business to 87 million and exiting? What was the in between bit?
Yeah, I mean, it was a long, painful road. We had a really tough business, tough margins. I don't think we could have operated any better than we did. The reason why the company, scaled fast at the end and we could exit was because of the pandemic. It took everybody online. So instead of having to drive, I was driving 50,000 miles a year on my car going from, the whole DMV we covered. And now I can make those sales on Zoom, right? So now I can do 3 times the amount of appointments in a day. We don't have trucks on the road. We're not paying for all those tolls, the gas. So all of a sudden our costs and margins are getting better. and the sales are going up at the same time. So it was a beautiful situation, and everybody was sitting at home scared to go to the grocery store. So now everybody's in the market for what we did at the right time. So I learned so many things through that process. And, if you're somebody that's really putting in the work and trying to make your business work, evaluate the vehicle you're in. Sometimes it's not you and it's actually the vehicle. There's a lot of people trying to make businesses work that are just never going to work.
Mm. So when you say vehicle, could you explain that to maybe somebody who's heard this for the first time?
Yeah. So, if let's take the food business we were in, our cost, because we were delivering the highest quality products, once we, had the cost of goods, the cost of delivery, the utility bills of walk-in freezers, all the overhead, there's not much money to be made. So you could be doing 10 million in sales and barely be making any money, right?
Uh-huh.
Versus if you're selling sponges for $2 and they cost 3 cents, you've got massive margins, right? So I think looking at the margins of your business, and if you can make it pencil, SaaS companies now are going to have, the highest valuations in the market because you're just selling recurring revenue software. There's no, cost to the actual product in terms of monthly delivery, other than, let's say, cloud storage and employees, things like that, right? So
Yeah. Unless AI comes for them, but that's another topic, right?
yeah,
So yeah, the vehicle is really about the potential upside you have based on whatever vertical or whatever industry you're in. So it's what's the margin, but also what's the total addressable market, right? Because if you're selling sponges and no one wants sponges because everyone else is buying wire brushes, you got to rethink your business, even if your margin's great, right? So it's all about finding that right vehicle. Can I ask you? I watched some of your stuff on Instagram, right? Really impressed. I think you've got some great tips there, and would recommend people review some of your insights. A lot of stuff on social media is super motivational, which I love, right? Getting people to get out there, great, hard work, be diligent, be persistent. But a question I don't think gets asked enough is, when should you stop? When should you quit? Now, I mean, like, quit insofar as, like you said, the vehicle. Let's say you're in the wrong vehicle. The margin isn't there. The total addressable market is too small. Your skills don't suit that. Like, when should you quit and do something else?
that is the hardest question to answer, right? Because for me, when I look back on it, I would have probably kept going forever
Because you're a
trying to make.
grafter, right? You're gonna keep knocking on doors. So like when I'm watching you, I'm like, this guy's gonna keep going. But like,
Yeah. So I think the only answer to that is exposure to new people, new information, getting out and networking, going to events, seeing what's out in the world and getting around other people that are doing things that you can't understand at levels that are so far beyond you. I think that's
uh,
really the only way for you to get the perspective in your mind of what's really possible.
uh,
Because most of us have never been around billionaires and, people that have sold their company for hundreds of millions of dollars. And you can change that whenever you're ready. Google events, like go to local networking meetups, and get rid of the imposter syndrome complex that you don't belong in the room. That was the hardest thing for me for a long time, is I thought because I didn't have a college degree and I was just a door-to-door sales guy that I didn't deserve to be in the room. That held me back for a long time until I was forced to go figure it out, started getting in these rooms, and then all this opportunity opens up and you realize that your skill set will translate. If you're the best at selling cell phones, you could probably go raise capital too, right? And be a hedge fund manager. But you've got to figure out how you can believe that you belong somewhere before you can get there.
uh. So did you just believe, or did you get in the room and then start just building that muscle
Got,
of
got in the
believing in
room.
yourself?
I met the right people that were in the right phase of starting up a fund, and I decided to be one of the first investors. I put my own money in first. I didn't ask for a job. This is a very key thing I want people to get, is at higher levels, you get in there by providing value, not by submitting a resume, right? No one cares about your resume. They want to see what you can do. And then I literally hit the phone, started networking, and started raising capital for this fund, like through like referring people before I was even in there. I brought them so much value and brought like 3 investors to them within a month. And they said, "Hey, do you want to be a partner on this?" Like
Right, right, right.
that's how it's done.
So value added job hunting in a way, right?
Yeah, go work for free for somebody that you respect and that can pull you up.
Yeah, yeah. So that's how you got into managing hedge funds. So like when you're and that's what you're doing now, right? You're a hedge fund manager.
Yeah.
So what's a day in the life like? Because my understanding of a hedge fund manager maybe is not 100% correct. I understood it as somebody who understand, and maybe you can tell me, are you in the markets and making the trades, or are you raising capital, or are you doing bits of both? Like, what's a
Yeah,
day in the
so
life?
within a hedge fund structure, you're going to have all different roles, right? So got 2 partners, so it's the 3 of us at the top, and we've all got different roles. One's the investment manager that makes the investment decisions. Our equities fund is fund to fund with a massive multi-billion-dollar fund that's got huge research desks, and they actually make the trading decisions for us, right? So we're going out to investors on the retail level in that fund and saying, "Hey, you want access to institutional type hedge fund product? This is your only way to get into it at this level, because at that institutional level, their minimums could be 5 million, 10 million, 15 million and up." So we're hitting a niche there, but we want to give the retail accredited investor access to that type of product through our fund to fund model, right?
Wow. Okay.
So
See,
really, I'm just networking, building relationships, and helping people get access to that.
it sounds like very interesting, very exciting, but also challenging when you're going to people and saying, "Hey, do you want to give us a big chunk of cash?" Because you're talking about real numbers here, right? Do you want to give us a big chunk of cash? And you're kind of a startup, you're established, but not quite like Berkshire Hathaway yet, right? Not yet, maybe in a few years, right? But how do you build that trust with those early stage investors?
Yeah, it's all relationship based, but it's also we're talking about like a $100,000 minimum. That might sound like a lot of money to most of us. For some people, that's just not even enough to even be interested in it, right?
Mm.
So I mean, some of these bigger check writers, they don't even look at a deal that they would write a check for less than 25 million. So that's that's a real thing, is playing in these different brackets and different deals and different players. But it's all the same thing. It's just like knocking doors. It's just have as many conversations as you can, meet as many people as you can, be as transparent as you can. Don't try to sugarcoat things. Tell people the truth on everything. And if you're providing real opportunity, the money will find it.
Very good. Very good. So all about that building relationships, being honest, being trustworthy, all that sort of good stuff comes in. Um, when they're talking to you, are they interested in your background? Are they interested in your brand? Like I see you doing a lot of stuff on social media, and I'm wondering how do you connect that with your hedge fund? Is that kind of a brand building and networking exercise, or
Yeah,
what's your
everything's a
plan?
people game, right? And social media is free. I mean, it doesn't cost anything to create and post. It doesn't cost anything to send direct messages to people and get on podcasts like what we're doing right now. That's kind of how you can flip the lead generation, the script to where the leads are coming to you, right? So instead of cold calling and all this stuff, I don't do any of that. I go and do media and make sure that we're collaborating all the content to get as many eyeballs as possible on me. And if people like me and they want to have a conversation, maybe they like the deal. So it's really not rocket science. It's just, a willingness to just do all of this stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love it. I love it. No, it's not rocket science, but it's still interesting to hear your perspective about how you think about this. And I think if you can explain it in those simple terms, it opens that gateway for someone else to think, well, if he can do it and he's good at building relationships and I'm good at building relationships, well, maybe I can do the same thing, get a bit of inspiration from it. Justin, right?
Anybody can do it. But the number one thing I see why people are failing, and this happens a lot because we have a social media marketing business too. And we work with a lot of individuals, brands, and companies. And the number one thing I see why people are failing in anything is just they quit after 30 days, 60 days if they don't get the results that they perceive they should get. And I mean, if you put an expiration date on your success, you will always fail.
Yeah, it's super tough, right? Because there's more people coming into the market. Um, so when you're thinking about those sort of social media strategies, obviously you're trying to build up media and so on, but are you trying to just post daily? Are you thinking about this over a decade? Like, what sort of time frame do you have?
Yeah, so that's a great question because a lot of people are will tell me I'm going to start my brand when I get my website, when I get this, when I get that, and I'm like, you already failed because I just started building it out of curiosity. I had no plan for it, right? And you can't see how things are going to change in the future. So why are you even trying to anticipate that to begin with? Social media is allowing people to see your development, your journey, your story. You should just live out loud. There's no right or wrong time to start building your brand. It's you. So if you're alive, the best time to start was yesterday, right? It's like
Yeah.
you don't even have to have your business. You start making your content on, I'm trying to figure my life out. I'm not sure where I want to go right now. This is what I'm trying. And you document all that and you let people start to follow and see your progression. That's how you build trust with people, right? And then they get inspired by seeing you fighting through everything you're fighting through, whatever that looks like. Most people want to hide from all that stuff instead of leaning into it, and it's all ego. Like if you're scared to post, if you're worried about what other people think, that's your ego. People don't care about us as much as we think.
I'm on. I 100% agree with you on that. Um, I think when people talk to me about it, they're just like, I don't want to put this out because people might think this or might think that. I'm like, look, I wish they would, but I don't think they will. I don't think they're thinking about us really at all. There's so much out there. You got to just put it out. Plus, being authentic is really, it not only is it the easiest because you can keep doing it and you don't have to do anything different. You don't have to act. And you can do it for longer, right? So you can just continue being authentic and like it compounds over the years. So it just makes sense. But I think like in Ireland, if you were sitting beside me in a coffee shop or in a pub in Dublin now, somebody would talk about having imposter syndrome. They would talk about feeling like, what will people think about me? What will they say about me? And I guess in small communities, you could have a town of like 2,000 people, 4,000 people, right? Which is like a Starbucks in Vegas, right? So like, what would you say to those people? Get out of the town, get to a bigger town. Would you say just get over your ego? Like, how did you kind of build up all that confidence?
I just did it anyways. I felt all those things. I still do. I was in a house the other day where the executives from BlackRock and Coinbase and billionaires and the week before that I was in a room where the net worth was 200 billion. It's only a couple hundred people. It's like it's very easy to feel like you don't belong there. I probably don't, but
But you're still there.
but you still show up, right? And all the beautiful things that have happened for me came out of showing up despite how I felt. So, it's we're all going to die. I don't know if everybody's aware of that. It's like like 100 years from now, we're all going to be gone, and no one's going to know anyone. No one's going to care. So why are you robbing yourself of your time on this planet?
Right. Yeah. So what's the downside? You're going to die anyway. So you may as well, try to live as best you can and put yourself out there a little bit. I think prioritizing, I suppose, putting yourself in a good position as opposed to prioritizing trying to avoid rejection or trying to avoid feeling uncomfortable. You want to embrace those uncomfortable feelings, embrace those feelings of rejection, enjoy them a little bit. Oh, I'm getting better now. I'm feeling uncomfortable and I'm still here. I'm feeling rejected and I'm still here. Just lean into it a little bit, I think that's what I try to say to myself anyway. I feel uncomfortable. I'm still doing it.
That's 100% it, right? And you get to decide in your brain how you label your emotions. It's one thing I've learned is like before I would speak on a stage, I would get really nervous. I could feel the adrenaline. I couldn't sleep the night before, couldn't eat breakfast the morning of. And I realized at one point that I had a choice. I could say, That's fear, that's anxiety. I don't want to do this. It's scary. Or you could say, this is excitement. I'm challenging myself. I belong here. This is a sign I'm going in the right direction. That inner self-talk is the difference of everything. It's no different than I'm tired. I don't want to go knock doors today, blah, blah, blah. Or it's like, hey, lean into it. Feel the tired. Do it anyways. Be the exception to the rule. That's why you deserve the success, right? How you talk to yourself is everything, and it's a daily battle for everyone at every level. So the idea that someday you graduate from these issues, that's another thing. If you can get into peace with that in your head, that every day, even if you move past all the challenges that you have today, there's a whole new set of them. It doesn't go away. So you really got to be able to lean into being in the process of always figuring out some sort of struggle.
Yeah, and to enjoy that struggle, right? To embrace it, not to try and avoid it.
Yeah. Smile. If you can smile while you're losing, you will be a winner at some point.
Great. So much positivity. I love it. Can I ask you, one of the things I heard you started off with was buying a home for you and your wife, right, to start your investment journey. And I'm interested if you reflect on that. Obviously, you've had like really awful fires. It's been terrible to see the fires on the west coast of the US recently. And I looked into it there today. Apparently, there's about $40 billion of insurance payouts, which means the insurance for the whole country is going to increase, the home insurance. So it's this like, I don't know if it's a hidden cost, but let's say it's definitely a cost that maybe a lot of people didn't factor into their original mortgage. If you're going about that sort of decision again, and you're thinking, I want to get into the investment market, maybe property is good, would you still be looking at property in light of these new sort of hidden costs or unexpected costs?
Yeah, absolutely. I still think for the average person that's not, in the investment world as a profession, the smartest thing you can do is buy a home and be frugal with your money. And you live in that house until you can buy another one, move out of it, rent it out, because yes, insurance costs are going up. Yes, interest rates are going up, but so are the equity in the homes, right? It balances out. So we see that. Now, we had a lot of heavy headwinds and pressure and insurance and commercial real estate that's hurt a lot of our multifamily investments, but part of the game, right? And that's rent goes up, and that cost gets passed on to the renter. So the question is it's going to be difficult either way. But do you want to be the one paying someone else's mortgage, or do you want someone paying your mortgage? It's a very simple thing, because if you can buy a house every couple of years, and you do that for, let's say, 10 years, and you've got 3 houses, and let's say it adds up to $1 million, 30 years later, that's $1 million paid off, and you never had to make a lot of money. You just had to be able to have someone else pay those mortgages, and that home in 30 years will probably be worth, those homes will be worth like $5 million. So now you got $5 million of equity. You probably got 10 grand a month in cash flow, and you never run out of money that way. The traditional thing that people do is invest in 401ks and build up a nest egg, and then they start drawing down from that in retirement, always in fear of running out of the nest egg. If you do it with real estate, the cash flow goes forever.
You have that recurring income forever, right? Yeah. One of the, so where I am today in Portugal and where I'm from in Ireland, one of the challenges first-time homeowners have is that their salaries are not increasing as quick as inflation is. Meanwhile, large vulture funds are buying the homes and then renting them back to the people. So they're stuck living at home while trying to save, but then the inflation is growing. So if you're like a teacher and your wife is like a nurse, you're not even tracking inflation with your salaries. This is like a super, super tough one. So that's something we're still trying to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, you know what my answer to that is I had to figure that out too in the beginning. Why was I able to buy homes and my friends, some of them making more money than me, were not able to? It's a sacrifice game. If you're making 50 grand a year and you can't save half of it, you won't save half of it when you make 5 million a year. That is what it is. You got to be more dedicated to living frugally or increasing your income or doing both, ideally, to make those, to get the seed capital to go make those moves. It's not the venture fund's fault. They've always been buying homes. That's a popular talking point. Like, and even if it is true, so what? Go beat them at their game. Like, you have to take control of your life. No one else is going to do it.
You got to take control. You got to, what else can you do apart from take control, right? You either put yourself in the driver's seat or you become a victim, as hard as it might be. If you don't take control, that's a much harder place to be, I think.
I was knocking doors during the day. I was dealing cards in a casino overnight. I was trying to do MLM stuff. I was trying so many things to figure it out because it was more important than, everybody else who just wanted to complain that they couldn't make enough money at their 9 to 5. Like, you only work 9 to 5 and you're complaining you don't have enough money. Like, what are you doing from 5 to 9?
Yeah. Well, you're a hardcore grafter through and through. Fair play to you. So you seem to always have that discipline early on to do whatever you need to do to get the result, and you were clear on what your values were of, building wealth, having a good career, and so on. Is that right? Like, where did you get that?
I think from watching, my family, the way we grew up. My dad built a really big business when I was very young, so I knew nothing but a very privileged life until around 12, 13 years old, where we had, big financial reversal, parents split up, and it got, big. Then I saw the other side of it, how people live. So I had the unique experience as a child, living totally different socioeconomic areas and riding those waves. And I don't know, I was always very upset that money would ever be something I'd have to worry about. I lost sleep over that. I would get, and I think to be this into solving the problem, you have to be in enough pain that, the pain of change outweighs that. And I remember just, wanting a car I couldn't buy pissed me off, wanting not to have to look at the price on the menu in a restaurant pissed me off, So I think I had a chip on my shoulder that life could be better, and I was upset that it wasn't.
Yeah. That pain pushed you, enough pain pushed you to grow and pushed you to move forward. Sometimes that's necessary, right? That necessary pain. We kind of get to a breaking. Do you ever feel like we get to a breaking point when you just say, you know what? No, today's the day. No more. I'm not doing this anymore. Today, it's only forward because I'm sick of this shit. Do you ever feel like that?
Yeah. All the time.
Right. So, you've exited the business. You've done well. You're in the private equity and the hedge fund business. That's going strength to strength, right? Is that fair to say? Money is, I talk to people about their values all the time. And as you know, money is a means to an ends. And I'm interested for Justin Freishtat, what is the end? What are you looking to get at what does it give you? You've got your, you've got your property now, you've got your comfortable life and so on. Maybe a little cherry on the top, I guess. But what is the ends? What do you get at the end of the day?
Well, I'll say that I think I have what I want in terms of the type of life I want to live, meaning that my day-to-day is networking with really high-level people, interesting people. The conversations are very stimulating. The experiences are incredible. The nice dinners, the retreats at the homes. It's, regardless of how much money you're making, I think the end game is to love your day to day. And, I'm going from city to city. Last night I had 2 meetings with, incredible people that are starting businesses, figuring out how we can help each other. So when your life's just one big networking event, I think that's kind of, I don't think I want anything else than that. I want the numbers to get bigger. I want the impact to get bigger. I want progress for sure, but I think I've found what I want to do with the rest of my life.
That's cool. That's cool. That's beautiful. I think if you enjoy the process, you enjoy the journey, that is the end in itself. That is the best one I think you can get where you're enjoying it. And yeah, sure, the numbers are maybe it's nice to have a scorecard to know that you're growing and progressing, but maybe that's more of a side point at this. Still important, but if you're enjoying the day to day, that's a beautiful place to be. You mentioned impact. I've maybe a little bit of a tricky question for you. So when you're talking to people about making money through the hedge fund, fantastic. Imagine you were giving advice to somebody who is interested in philanthropy. They're interested in effective giving to charity. So you're kind of asking for money, but not really giving you anything back, right? You just give us your money and we'll give you a high five. And maybe we'll put you on stage at the end of the year and thank you. Do you have any advice of how you would recommend somebody would go about talking to high value investors about giving large amounts of money?
Yeah, I think, first of all, fundraisers and charities are a great place to network because everybody's got money, right? And I think people are at that level are looking for a couple things. They want to make sure that their money is, the majority of it is going towards the cause and not being, wasted. So I think you've got to be able to convey good stewardship of the capital, and it's got to be of interest to that person. But there's also there's a financial component to giving where it's tax write-offs. So finding people who need those tax write-offs and want to give to something to make impact, but also if they can improve their financial situation and help people, it's a win-win. So I think crafting that dynamic and making a marriage of those things is how you would fundraise for a charity.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So yeah, I suppose reassuring them that their money is going to the place in the best, most efficient way possible. But then also the practical down to earth nuts and bolts of helping them or helping them understand the tax side, right? Because they may as well benefit if that's possible. Then they can give even more cash to their charity, right?
Exactly.
Where do you see yourself over the next 5 years? Would you like to take on CEO? Would you like to take on another business? Do you see yourself staying hard and fast and growing the fund?
Yeah, I think for me, my latest venture is with a company called Healthcare Integrated Technologies. I'm the chief capital officer there. It's my first time being inside of a publicly traded company, and it's a very interesting experience. So the number one thing that I want to see happen is we want to uplist this stock to the New York Stock Exchange and, ring the bell on Wall Street. That's a...
You want to go public?
Yeah, well, we're already public. We're just
Okay.
over-the-counter market pink sheet. So we're checking the boxes right now to uplist to the NYSE, and that day is coming where, I'll be up there at the New York Stock Exchange ringing the bell. That's a huge bucket list thing that, is right in reach, that I just would have never dreamed that I would be in that position. So that's the next milestone this year. But in terms of being a CEO or starting my own business, I don't really think that's my identity. I'm a lot happier when I'm adding value to someone who's ahead of me, better than me, bigger collective mission. I'll be the first one to say that me starting a company, doing a reverse triangular merger like Scott Boroff did, and then going to ring the bell on my own would probably take me, who knows, or maybe never even get there. But if I can get behind and partner with somebody who's got 22 exits, it's done over $1 billion before, my chances of success are a lot better attaching myself to better people. I think that's a really strong quality of someone that doesn't have ego, that just wants to win. However, we win as a group. There's a lot of people that want to be the guy, that want to own the business, that are struggling building small businesses. And look, if that's your identity and that's what winning looks like to you, great. But I think most of us would be better figuring out what we're great at and just going all in on that skill set and attaching it to, people who are true unicorns in this world, because it's very, very few and far between to have, 9-figure and up success as a founder business owner.
For sure. do you think it's over glamorized, the idea of being a founder or CEO? You know, all these movies come out. Do you remember the sexiest people used to be rock stars? Now it's founders,
Yeah.
right? Do you think it's over glamorized?
I mean, not at the top. I mean, that's the ultimate win. But I think I've always been very realistic about odds percentages and what is my best tactical way to win. And I've never even wanted to be the founder and dealing with accounting and legal and operations, and then there's sales, marketing, and there's all like being on top of all of those things. It's never been something I wanted to do. I started a business and a couple, and that's how I kind of found out it just wasn't what I wanted to do.
Yep, yep, yep. It's good to find those things out as early as possible and see what suits you and see what fits you. You don't if you're you don't need to be the guy building every single part of the car. You can just be the guy who drives the fast car, right? And harnesses the existing vehicle. I was interested listening to you on one of the other podcasts where you're talking about like some of the founders, like the NVIDIA founder actually was really struggling with all the responsibility he had. I had a friend who was a founder and who has exited recently, and he was telling me that in his food business, if somebody got a bad package for whatever reason and they got sick for whatever reason, he could be brought to court and he could go to jail in Ireland. So the responsibility is massive. And I'm not sure how much people see that when they're thinking about starting off. It seems very glamorous, but like you
You
said,
have
maybe finding your
no
skills.
idea what you're getting into. You will be sued. You will be stolen from. You will, you'll get HR problems. You'll have, like in our first business, it's a physical delivery business. You'll have people driving trucks, drive them into someone's home, and now you've got to do a home renovation for a customer because, or the things that will happen in business. Like, I don't think most people really understand what they're signing up for. And that's why the CEO of NVIDIA was basically saying that, to be the billionaire he is, it actually wasn't worth it. It's literally what he said on the carnage, the destruction, the pain and suffering, and what it really takes, to build something like that. He's probably not sure if he would do it again.
Mm. Well, if he says it's not worth it, it sounds like he wouldn't do it again, right? I mean, that's why I think like figuring out like what is the end, figuring out that at the start, because a lot of people are just like, well, I want to make loads of money. It's like, okay, so then what? And often actually, if you ask them, it's like, so I can own a home and own a car and enjoy my work. And it's like, well, if we could help you own a home and own a car and enjoy your work without all that stress, would that be good too? And it's like, that's just never come up. But the way you're kind of talking about, you're happy to be a key player on the team and to still have your own personal goals met, I think is a good perspective as well, right?
Yeah. And, when you're first getting started, the goal, one thing that's going to happen, and this is why this is very contrarian view, but lately I've been against goal setting. And this is why it's every time, I achieved the goals I had where I thought I would be happy and arrived, then the goalpost just keeps getting moved further along until one day I realized that I'm never enjoying the process because I'm focused so much on a future outcome. So now it's like, in perspective, I have everything I ever dreamed of. Now, because of the world I've been exposed to, and I see how much other people have created and what's possible, it does complex you into wanting to go there, right? So I've just gotten to a point where now I just operate in 24-hour blocks. My goal is just to crush the next day. That's it. And wherever I end up, whatever the outcomes are, that's up to God. And it takes all the pressure off of you, but you still have the accountability of getting done what you need to get done to progress every day. So
Yep.
I'm not a vision board guy. I don't write down my goals anymore, and I'm a lot happier.
I'm with you. I think the goals can be unsatisfying when people get them, and then sometimes when they don't achieve them because they set such audacious goals, then they just feel disappointed and they feel dejected. Whereas if you focus on the actions and the action steps, the process that you want to follow, and you do that consistently, and then just kind of let the goals sort themselves out in time. Once you have some idea of your general direction, like that actually comes from John Wooden, the famous US basketball coach, not the US team, but the famous, I think he was UCLA basketball coach, where he was saying, focus on the process and don't worry about, the result. The result will look after itself. And so he used to tell the guys that, they either played well or they didn't play well. And it was not interested really in the result at all. So sometimes they'd win and they wouldn't play well. And he'd be like, you didn't play well, yeah. Which is like totally counterintuitive to so many people. They were like, doesn't matter, we won. I'd be like, no, it does matter. You got to focus on the process. So it's kind of what you're saying about the sales process or your day-to-day. Enjoyed that journey, right?
Yeah. But I do wonder often, though, if you have to go through that process first to get to where I am in terms of that mental space where you can still operate as if you have the goals, right? Because you've built the muscle and the discipline. I'm not sure I would be able to do that if I didn't spend 10 years focused on goals, sacrificing everything for them and going through that. So, I don't want to discourage people from setting goals. Like if you've got discipline issues, you don't have a track record of being able to stick through things and, hit targets. I do think you should set goals and hold yourself accountable to them until it becomes who you are.
Yeah. So setting the direction is important. I think setting direction is important, but also being flexible in your approach. I think sometimes people are so rigid in their approach that they kind of get lost somewhere along the way. But having the direction, I think, is key. I do like the vision board because it tells me what I'm looking for, big picture. It tells me where I'm going. Otherwise, I can't really see that direction. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I know.
It works. You must have a vision board of the house, of the car, the wife, you must have had some sort of vision board, right?
Oh, I had it all. I had all the goal pads, everything. Oh. I'll never forget when it can be very deflating because, people say, put a picture of the car you want, the house. But if you are chasing a material thing and you get it, I promise you it's going to be very depressing on the other side. I remember for 10 years, like we're buying houses, we're making smart investment choices. And all I was writing on my goal pad was I want an R8. Like I wanted the car more than anything. I wanted this car. And then I finally let myself have it. And within a month or two of making the payment on it, I was so depressed about it and sold it. So I focused on something for a decade just to find out it's not what I actually wanted.
Wow. I hope someone tunes in and hears that nugget and they save themselves all that hassle. I'm not sure if you've come across Rick Rubin, the famous music producer, but he talks about like when the artist finally has their big hit album and they build up their whole career to maybe it's their second or third, it's a real big one that they put everything in and they launch it. And, it could go well or it could go badly. Like if Beyonce launches the same day, probably it's going to really affect your launch. Or if she doesn't, maybe your launch is going to take off. But they would say like, after that, it can be a very depressing moment because they realize, oh, so that's it. Is this all there is? And then he was saying like, don't expect that goal to fill whatever hole that is inside of you. You gotta do that work yourself. You gotta fill that imposter syndrome or whatever point. It is, right?
Yeah. This whole I'll be happy when doesn't exist. It's not a bigger house. It's not a nicer neighborhood, right? But when you haven't had those things, you think that's what you need to chase. And then you'll find when you get it that you had it wrong the whole time.
Words of wisdom. Just, I like it. So I might finish off by asking you, suppose some young buck is listening to this and he's raring to go. He wants to make some cash. He wants to get in the market and he thinks, right, I'm going to use this guy's strategy on him. I'm going to DM Justin Freishtat. And what should he say to you to actually convince you, not to give him a job, but to listen to him for 5 minutes or whatever it might be? What would you recommend?
Don't try to pitch me anything in the first communication. That's the biggest thing.
Don't take, right? No taking.
Yeah, or, just be very transparent about why you're reaching out. Like, when I take every single call meeting of anybody who says, "Hey, I want to learn from you. I'm just getting started," like anything like that. I love talking to those people. There's a lot of people who did that for me and still do, right? So I'm always down to help people. If you come correct in terms of, not trying to fake anything, slithering your way in, pretending like you're more than you are, people always know when you're faking it. So I think the approach is everything. And look, if you're going to send me a DM, have a profile picture that's your face. Like little things, right? Like if you don't have a profile picture, there's no content on the page, I automatically think that there's something wrong, and I'm not going to answer your DM.
Right. So get a personal brand, get a profile photo, a line or two about yourself is good. If you posted some content, that's good too. So you've got a bit of trust in the person. And I think the tip you gave at the start was great. The thing you do with investors, which is or to your current company, which is you brought value first, and then you kind of went back and say, "Hey, will we have a conversation?" And I think if someone approaches you like that, is that fair to say that if they bring value to you first, it's a good start, even if it's not the perfect value, right?
People have no clue how close they are to whatever life they want to have. Like you're always one relationship away. I've learned that by having those key relationships. If you want to be a hedge fund manager, you want to be a capital raiser, you are one relationship away. I'm the gateway to that. All you have to do is demonstrate to me that you can go out and network and bring investors in. You do that 1 or 2 times, and all of a sudden I'm saying, "Hey, do you want to do this with us?" Like it's
Game on.
Right. And you don't need any degrees. You don't need any accolades. You just need some heart and work ethic and belief.
Great. I love it. Inspiring words. Some belief, some work ethic, and go and make it happen. Start sending those DMs. Justin, thank you for all these insights, pearls of wisdom and lessons learned hard, right, from the graft over the years. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us. It was 9 a.m. in Vegas when we started, so thanks so much. Fair play to you for getting up early in Vegas. I don't think many Irish people are up that early when they go to Vegas. They're probably still up from the night before.
Yeah, we keep it rolling. East Coast meetings or people even in Europe. So I'll be on Zoom sometimes at 5:30, 6 a.m. in the morning. Like I get started early.
That's great. That's great. So look, thanks so much for that. Really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.